And that was a backgrounder put together by our correspondent Ekene Ntulue just to kickstart our conversation. You've heard the topic, recovery from 2022 flood disaster. So let me start our introductions right now. And here in the studio, we have Professor Emmanuel Adano, who is the Director General, National Water Resources Institute, and also member, Presidential Committee on Flood. We're very glad to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Also joining us here in the studio is Engineer Margaret Oguntala, Deputy President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSE, and we're also glad to have her with us today. Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning.
All right, Al Hassan Nuhu is the Director in charge of Relief and Rehabilitation at the National Emergency Management Agency, and now, as it were, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Al Hassan, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. And we also would like to welcome Dr. Victor Ofobe, is Head Special Projects at the Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation. Dr. Ofobe, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Okay. Well, Engineer Margaret, we're glad that you are here, and all the others. There are many ways of course, looking at the flood disaster of last year, but we know that this year there are also dire forecasts of flooding, and we have seen part of it happen already, particularly for us here in the Federal Capital Territory. Trade Mall has taken a hit, and when we had a conversation on what to expect further in the coming months, NISAL, of course, is the Hydrological Services Agency that is in charge of predicting flood outlook, did say that we should still expect some river flooding, and when that comes, we don't know what's going to happen. But last year, of course, was a horrible one for those who were impacted by it. How well have they been picking the pieces and then seeking to get their lives together again before this year happens? Let's begin with the director from NEMA, Al Hassan Nuhu. What has happened since last year?
Well, as the flood unfolded last year, the immediate need is to provide humanitarian assistance in terms of food and non-food items, and then to try to link it off with the recovery process. Recovery process entails restoration of facilities, livelihoods, and living conditions of the people, and also efforts towards reducing the main risk factors. In doing this, the agency, in addition to the humanitarian assistance provided, trying to resuscitate livelihoods through the instrumentality of the Federal Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and the NDDC, seeing the peculiarity of the Niger Delta region. A support assistance was given in trenches, entailing food, non-food items, building materials, and livelihood resuscitation support, like sewing machine, like grinding machine, like saloon equipment, and other livelihood support. This is ongoing. Already the first tranche of the intervention has been given to the 9 Niger Delta states, and also the whole country, the 36 states of the Federation, are undergoing what is called Special Economic Emergency Intervention Program right now, in line with the vision of the country in providing livelihood assistance and also rejigging the economic condition of the communities affected by the disaster. This is also ongoing, and at the same time, we are bracing off for the 2023 flood, because the best way to recover from a flood is from its own preparedness. Efforts are going on simultaneously. Also, if you consider the area of reconstruction, that is primarily area of bringing back physical structures, in terms of affected roads, broken falls, broken pipes. The relevant ministries, departments and agencies are saddled with that responsibility. So the recovery effort is ongoing and it covers the 36 states of the Federation, while special agencies like NDDC and Northeast Development Commission are also bringing in their own competence in that area.
You know, sometimes, Kingsley, when I hear response and I hear the word ongoing, it gives me a kind of impression that, I mean, this will continue to be ongoing. You know, ongoing is a continuous process. Anyway, but we're looking at...
Well, recovery is a medium to long term.
Yes, we're looking at, and that's what I'm still staying with you. We're looking at recovery from 2022, you know, flood disaster. And the way you're saying it, sometimes these things are just done arbitrarily. I'm wondering, is there a strategy put to it, you know, with regards to the different categories of people affected? And I found out that even NEMA, you know, made some form of data requisition from NASTRA, you know, in terms of maps, areas that have been affected. What do you do with such data?
It's not arbitrary. As the flood unfolds, there were immediate assessments, and after the flooding, we undertook post-disaster need assessment. No recovery effort evolve without post-disaster need assessment, because you need to, from there, identify your vision, map out strategies. That is why, if you see the livelihood intervention all over the country, it's not the same. Some areas are being supported in the area of rice, beans, sorghum, millets, depending on comparative advantage as far as those areas. It was not an arbitrary intervention. It was followed by post-disaster need assessment, both the one that was carried out by NEMA and the whole bank supported rapid intervention, rapid post-disaster assessment of the 2022 flooding. Areas were identified based with their own peculiarities, and interventions were being carried out along that line.
All right, Alassane Nuhu, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Professor Emmanuel Adano. Professor Emmanuel Adano, of course, apart from your function as Director General of the Water Institute, you were formerly Director of Dams. And happily, you were also a member of the Presidential Committee that was set up after the flood disaster of last year. The committee, of course, was composed by former President Muhammadu Buhari and headed by the then Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. What happened with the committee?
Thank you very much. What actually was supposed to happen with the committee happened. That was to provide the comprehensive master plan for actions to prevent flooding. That was the assignment given to us. Incidentally, I was the chairman of the technical working group. We were given 90 days, and within the 90 days we submitted our report. And from what I heard and the information I got from the villa then, the report was sent to the President, and the President approved our recommendations. And the letter to that effect was sent to our former minister. We were waiting, but it was done late May. So the formal administration didn't have the opportunity to implement. But we are waiting for what is going to come out now. Now, we were told to come out with a comprehensive plan of action to prevent flood. Prior to this time, there was a document from Humanitarian, and that was approved by the Federal Reserve Council, but it was on preparedness and response. Ours was prevent flood. So there are two different decisions. And we recognize that in that document effectively. We said when it comes to a situation that the flood occurs, because you can never prevent flood, and that was the assignment given to us. So we try to see how we'll make it mitigation rather than total prevention and adaptation. So we work towards mitigation and adaptation. Then if it is beyond that, now we trigger the documents on preparedness, and so we accepted that report and worked on it. Now, we had 10 strategic plans, ranging from data gathering all the way down to the importance of flood in the economy. And we have done a lot. Many ministries were involved. Water resources, environment, humanitarian, agric, power, works and housing, defense, because we had to incorporate defense. Agriculture specifically was very important with this. Aviation, so all of us. And what we did was first to look at their policies, then the codes of practice, master plans if the sectors have, their roadmaps if they have, and then try to look at the roadmap. How old are they? Whether they need to be changed in the face of this frequent flooding. Some of the codes, whether they are adequate for what we're experiencing now, especially roads, culverts, bridges, and all this. Are they adequate to contain the flood that's coming now? So we asked them if they have. So we did a lot of modifications and proposals for some of these things to take. Now, early warning, we also were wondering, how can we get more people involved in the early warning? NIMET comes out with the prediction, NISA comes out with the outlook, then we are waiting. When the rain comes, we want to see whether what they have predicted, and they are coming out. Sometimes it's up to 70% accuracy. We cannot throw such accuracy out, but we need more, because during our work, when we were moving around the country, because we identified specific areas that were hard hit, and consistently every flooding must come there. We have identified this. So when they interacted with the people affected, and we asked them, if the government decides to move you away from here, would you go? So that you can. They say no. In fact, 90% of them say they won't leave because their livelihood is there.
Yes, because they don't have any other place to go.
Yeah.
And maybe, Prof. I'm glad you're here, and because this is a major aspect, of this recovery process. Yes, and I'm sure that we will take each of the very important strategic recommendations that we've made to see how that can work out. But let me also bring in Dr. Ofowe into our conversation. Of course, he's the head special projects that deals with agricultural insurance and all that. When we talk about recovery, within the context of flooding, what exactly are we looking at?
When we talk about recovery in terms of insurance, agricultural insurance, really we insure farmers against flood, drought, pests, and diseases. And now when this flood happens, we're expected to pay compensation to these farmers. And for that 2012 and 2022, that's this last year, we have processed the claims of all farmers who insured with the corporation, and most of their claims have been paid.
Any number to that?
I would say so far we've paid over 650 million to farmers who suffered losses as a result of this flood for 2022. And you see, flooding is not new to the corporation, because we have, over the years, flood is one of the perils the corporation covers. And over the years, we've been having flood in this country. In fact, the flood of 2012, way back 2012, we paid a lot of money also to farmers across the country. even 2018.
When you say a lot of money, you're talking about bulk payment. You know, how much does that, when you break it down, how much, you know, do you pay an individual farmer, for instance?
No, you see, insurance is a technical business. When you insure, yes, when a farmer insures, he insures up to the cost of production. That is, for example, if his farmer has 1 hectare of farm, and he says maybe he uses 250,000, for example, to produce 1 hectare of rice. When a loss occurs, the payment to that farmer is based on the point of loss from production to maybe when the flood occurred, probably at the flowering stage. They have stages. So we pay the farmer what he has put in up to that point of loss. That is how the payment is made. And of course, the farmer is not expected to make profit from insurance.
I would like you, Dr. Ofobe, to explain this further. Yeah. You say compensation is being paid to farmers who insured with you.
And who suffered losses.
Yeah, that's the second leg of it. Of course, if you insure and there's no loss, then you can't make a claim. Who are these farmers? Are they the smallholder farmers? Are they cooperatives? Are they, you know, large? Who are these farmers?
Okay.
Yes,
actually these farmers cut across the smallholder farmers, the cooperatives, and even the corporate farmers. The corporate farmers, for example, Olam, Koskaris, those are corporate farmers. Dangote, those are corporate farmers. Then the small-scale farmers, individual farmers who come to us. Yes, those are small-scale farmers. And those farmers who access loans from the banks, maybe 100,000, 200,000. Then the cooperative societies, because you know these farmers have cooperative societies. The All Farmers Association, Rice Farmers Association, and all that. So farmers, Maize Farmers Association. So farmers from these associations, these are the farmers. So it cuts across both small, medium, and large scale farmers.
I'm asking this question again so that we have better enlightenment for our farmers. You say those farmers who insure with you.
Yes.
Do you have a marketing department that also goes out to market your insurance products to these farmers? And when you do market your insurance products to the farmers, what is the usual response that you get from them?
Yes, we have a marketing department which we call business development department. We have a lot of marketers who go all out to market these farmers. We have our offices in all the states of the Federation, and we work with ministries of agriculture in all the states of the Federation. We work with extension agents. We work with even banks, lending institutions, banks that lend to agriculture. So we market these farmers through all these channels. Okay, and their trade associations. Like I said, we have these All Farmers Association, Rice Association, and all that. So we market these farmers through their associations, through the banks, through the cooperative societies, through the state ministries of agriculture and extension agents in the states. So really, even the local governments, because you have agricultural offices in the local government. So we have relationship with them because really we are in the field. That's how we get to market these farmers. And of course, we do sensitization workshops for these farmers. And when we do sensitization workshops, we invite all these stakeholders, these farmers, the banks, all of them. They come to us and we talk to them. So really, we market them.
Are you impressed so far with the response of those to whom you are marketing your insurance products?
I would say, really, it hasn't been very good. And the reason is because probably, you know, farmers, most of these farmers, what they think about. We should ask a farmer now, what is your problem? He will tell you credit. What is the second problem? He will tell you credit. So it's money they want. But insurance, anything that we take a little money from them, that we add to their cost of production, they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear about it. That's the truth.
So thank you. You know, where you, I mean, insurance, like you said, is a technical area that I don't even want to dabble into. I'm sure I'm not alone.
No, I'm not with you on that.
No, I'm not talking to you.
What I'm saying, the thing, there was a slogan for an insurance firm in the 80s, and that slogan stuck in my head. You know, it was the acronym for the insurance firm. I won't go into the details. It was NICOZ, NICOZ. And the payoff line, that is sign-off line, says after promoting, say, NICOZ, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kingsley. I get your message. Engineer Margaret, so for engineers now, what would recovery consist, you know, within the context of flood and all that?
Well, thank you. Recovery will consist of assessment of the damage done to infrastructure mainly, and assessment, and then we assess the damage, and then we estimate the cost of repair, and then we also do the repair. Those are the responses. I mean,
of structures.
Yes, of structures, of like infrastructure, like the roads, like pipelines, you know, like even houses and all of that have been negatively impacted by the flood. And we, as the Nigerian Society of Engineers, immediately after the flood, we did set up a committee of experts, you know, in that area. And some of us also worked with the Profs committee, you know. So we did a full assessment, and we even made a press statements. We had a press release on the recommendations for government, the short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And we believe that unless we quickly recover from the 2022 flood, we might be having a more serious problem when the next flooding comes.
So let me also borrow Kingsley's words. Are you satisfied with the extent of recovery made by?
I'm not. I'm not.
Why not?
But because a lot of the recommendations, for instance, in 2012, we had this flooding, and we made recommendations. I mean, there were agencies and ministries and government at all levels set up committees, various committees, to assess the situation and make recommendations. If some of those recommendations had been implemented, then the flooding of 2022 would not have been that serious. So I believe that up till now, maybe some work has been done, but it's not enough to mitigate the next flood.
I'm really interested in the level of work that has been done.
Yes.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Yes.
So that we know, you know, we're able to measure the gaps.
Yes.
Would you perchance have knowledge of the level of work, recovery work, and in terms of, you know, infrastructures and all that has been done?
Yes, I would.
Maybe Prof asked that.
Yes, they did more of the gathering of the data. So, but however, I would say that up till now, I mean, between the last flood, the 2022 flood, and now, I don't think that we have had more than, say, 40% of recovery, you know, in terms of repairs, you know, of the infrastructure and all of that. Yes.
Engineer Margaret Oguntala, look, we saw some of the visuals from the flood disaster of last year. Probably the most dramatic would be the traffic logjam at Lokoja, because that's the confluence of the two major rivers. And for days, nothing was happening. And then, of course, those who were in the Federal Capital Territory and up to the rest of the country, there was fuel scarcity. We also had commodity scarcities in the southern part of the country, because trucks could not move their agricultural produce and goods to the southern part of the country. And after the flood receded, and of course we had NEMA, who was here with us, telling us what they were doing in terms of the humanitarian assistance, then the floods, of course, the floods just didn't sink. They moved on to hit Delta, hit Anambra, and Bayelsa. Washout of roads, washout of bridges, washout. You can see some of those ones. These are some of the personal structures, but roads and culverts and bridges, and by the time the waters were then trying to empty into the Atlantic Ocean, you saw that Bayelsa was virtually a no-go area. From an engineering point of view, what can you, I'm not saying that you, of course, you have to conduct your tests to be sure that the integrity is right and so on and so forth. What kind of structural hazard are we facing now following the flooding of last year if remedial measures were not taken?
Well, the disaster really that we face cannot be overemphasized if remedial or palliative repairs are not done to all those failed infrastructure, the washed off roads. You find out that unless we do that, really, like you said, we face a serious disaster, and government needs to deploy a lot more to the repair of those infrastructure, the roads in particular, because there is no gainsaying the fact that flood impacts roads more than any other infrastructure. And of course, we also know that the livelihood of the average Nigerian and socioeconomic activities depend on the roads. Already we have a lot of deficits in road infrastructure, and then the coming of the flood has made it a lot worse. So I believe that a lot of work has to be done.
You know why I'm asking this question? So that the other guests are also here. Look, they will tell you, engineers, you would say that is the substratum of the road.
Of the road.
If it's subjected to water seepage and so on and so forth, after a while you begin to have failed section.
Sure.
You will know the busy arterial roads in this country, and Lokoja, of course, is one of them. Would you know, for instance, whether tests have been carried out? Because at the slightest flooding, you're going to have a traffic log jam on that axis, and elsewhere in the country, East-West Road that was also affected by it. Do you have an idea, as a Society of Engineers, whether from the Ministry of Works or state governments have moved in to check the integrity? Because failed portions, once they occur, that's the end. Yes,
I know. We really don't have that information, but we know that we made recommendations for that, and we are even offered, to do some of the tests for the government. But I mean, it was part of our press release, and I'm not aware that we have been invited for any of those things.
You see, Kingsley, that's the problem. That's the problem. We do things and we sometimes are laid back. I mean, don't we follow through? Shouldn't NSE follow through whatever recommendations? For instance, the Lokoja Road, Abuja Lokoja Road, I'm sure the NSE doesn't even know if anything is happening.
Well, I'll tell you
that road, even the previous, I think it was 2012, Kingsley? 2012 disaster.
Yes.
That road was also, threatened.
It was locked off for days.
It was cut off for days. Niger State also, the Suleja, axis was also threatened. So what is happening?
Believe me, madam, there is just so much that you can do, that the Nigerian Society of Engineers can do. We have made recommendations. We have done a lot of sensitizing of the people, even the people, talking about it and talking about what they ought to do to mitigate flooding. And we have, in recent past, the last press release, because we got just fed up and we didn't know what else to do. So we have called a press conference. We have written to the government. We have sent our reports, at various stages, and we have also, just in May, we had to call a press conference to see and make a press release to at least let people know that what we are thinking and the recommendations that we have made to government.
Okay, sorry, Kingsley.
Yeah, we will get into that, because Professor, I would like Professor Adano to weigh in again.
Okay.
There probably will be a congruence between some of the recommendations that the Society of Engineers has talked about and what your committee also recommended that the last administration worked on. I would imagine that the report should be somewhere, or the approval or the consideration should be somewhere in the SGF's office, if not at the villa. Prof.
Well, thank you very much. As my sister, I sympathize with you because, to be sincere, our assignment was to see how we can mitigate flood. And before we started this assignment, all the relevant stakeholders were invited to provide us with policies, code of practice, and all other codes in the operation. Works gave us theirs. After 2012, they modified some of the codes and gave at the 20% chance. That's by increasing. If a culvert was this size, now they increase it by 20%. If the height was this, they increase it by 20%. That was a slight modification at 2012. Now, 2022 was extreme, so it wasn't sufficient. So we say, okay, look at this and see how you can still modify your code to suit at least substantially the incoming floods. Now, we have to warn ourselves that this flooding will keep coming. We have to prevent, we are told to prevent the flood. It's very difficult. We can't. But we can reduce the effect sufficiently for us to manage whatever comes. And we have a comprehensive understanding of the water situation in the country, the movement of the water, the tracks, where they go, and we can start attacking them from those sources. By the time they all accumulate to cause this dramatic flood, we would have dissipated so much of it within the country and profitably. So we've taken into consideration that. Let me tell you also that flooding is the only natural disaster that has both positive implications. Flooding. We have taken that into consideration as well. So, any structural arrangement you are going to make to prevent flood will provide a lot of gains. If you construct, Kingsley just mentioned that, if you construct dam, can provide water for irrigation, can provide water for hydropower generation, water supply, health, and all this. So, if it is necessary to reduce the flood in one side of the country that will dramatically affect the concentration of water in another place that is already constricted, we've taken that into consideration. So we have a complete, comprehensive look at all this.
So what is the involvement of the NSC within this?
It was represented, NSC was, we wrote in a letter and they represented, they sent a representation.
Okay.
Hardwick had everybody, even NEMA, all.
Prof, with regards to the Lokoja Abuja road, yes, because if we don't do anything, it will still happen, even worse. And the flooding along that path is not just surface water overflowing. It's not just flash flood. It also as a result of the rivers overflowing their banks. So it's a very complex situation.
Well, I will tell you that it's not that complex. It's not that complex. The water comes from somewhere, and we allow it to flow there. We already know there's a jam there. That's the neck of the Y. There's a jam there. The waters come from both wings, and they accumulate there. We can prevent that water accumulating at that level at that point by trying to control them upstream. That is not the only area you can have flood. In Abuja today we had this trademark, and that is because they are paving the environment without sufficient drainage pattern to accumulate that overland flow. If you put a structure today, the roof prevents the water from sinking to the ground. What does it do? It allows water to flow, and so all those houses there, the roofs are like paved, and no water gets into the ground again. So it just flows. But they have not been able to identify the quantity of water and measure the appropriate channel configuration to accommodate this. Now, somebody asked me about what is the short-term approach to this. I said the short-term approach is not to live in floodplains. That is it. But if you want to live in the floodplain, you must know what you are, the risks you are taking, and how you can control it. So these are, and we have identified all this across. And let me tell you one other thing. Environment. Where's environment? What do we do? Ministry of Environment. They came up with some things. Do you know forests? These forests you see, they're very helpful in checking flooding. And there are places, we have about how many of them in the country, which are supposed to be preserved for several purposes. And flooding is one of them. So we have identified places where you can plant trees, make sure that I slow down the flow of water and all this. And there is no just one answer to this. But no, it's a comprehensive.
Yeah, you say it's comprehensive, Prof. Let's try to isolate the elements in the comprehensive framework or the comprehensive recommendations. Earlier you talked about the Presidential Committee identifying perennially flood-prone areas and where the inhabitants are reluctant to relocate. Which are these locations?
Well, if you go along the Benue Valley, you have them there. In Niger Valley, in Makurdi, we're even there too. If you go to some other places, I was telling you a story behind. We went to Makurdi after the flood, and we saw that the flood mark in some places about 2 meters on the wall, on trunks of trees. We saw that. But the people asked them, okay, what do you want to do if the government recommends an environment for you to be relocated to? They say no. So I picked one of them. I say, okay, why would you not leave this place? The man, I asked him, how long have you been here? He said, I've been here for many, many years. I asked, did you experience the flood of 2012? He said, yes. And now you're experiencing the one of 2022. He said, yes. I said, then why don't you want to live here? He gave me an analysis that shocked me. He said, between 2012 and 2022, what he got from the flood that wasn't devastating was enormous. His economic standard increased. He built houses. He sent three of his kids to university. He bought cars, and he had some wives and all this. So I said, okay. 2012, 2022, you lost some of your. He said, yeah. I said, don't you think that? He said, that is nothing close to what he gained in the 10 years in between. So that is a risk he has to take. So I said, okay, what do you want us to do for you? He said, yes. What I want you to do for me, sir, is to make sure that the flood is not this high. So it is for us now to construct levees to divert this, protect the environment, allow certain level of water to seep through so that they can use the environment, because they say the resources they have here is the land and the water. They cannot move anywhere. So these are the ones, these are the people we have to learn from. And then in terms of early warning, a lady told me, he said, our sisters, brothers and sisters in Taraba, when the flood goes there, they call us, because we know in 3 days it will be here. So they inform us, then we move. These are things we need to incorporate in our system.
Okay,
it gives early warning.
Yeah. Let's look at even the issue with Trademore. If you ask those residents to move, it's not easy. It won't be easy for those residents to move. So what can be done? What is the shortcut?
Well, maybe I should say that I'm a professional in water and movement and all this and that. I wouldn't have bought personally anything Trademore, if you ask me. So it will be very difficult for me to advise anybody on what to do, because this is a television. They may say, this man is this and that, but I wouldn't go there if I know that place is in a very low-lying environment. You know that of recent, we're having more frequent flooding. The rainfall pattern is changing. Yes. And it's all because of, they say, climate change. And what is climate change? It's basically variation in temperature and sea level rise, nothing else. So it does this. So if you are aware of this, and you really love yourself, I wouldn't go there. But if you're already there, like in some places that are not initially not flood prone, are becoming flood prone now, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm sure you're aware of Jigawa. Jigawa is not on any of these trunks, but Jigawa is always perennially because of the situation around there.
Well, yeah, how do you explain Jigawa? And of course, Kebbi also, farmlands are usually submerged, but particularly Jigawa, it is a bit curious.
Yeah, Jigawa's case is, it's curious, as you say. Now, rainfalls in the Jigawa area has been increasing intensity, but that's not the issue. In Jigawa environment, you have River Jamari that comes from the Jos Plateau that goes there. Then Hadija that comes from the highlands around Zamfara, North Kano area, not going there. The two of them meet around that side. Now, they join to go to Komadugu, Yobe, and then to Lake Chad. But in that environment, when the two rivers meet, they are supposed to come together and now start moving directly to Chad. Then there's an ancient sand dune that is oblique to it. So the flow is no more. So it starts creating Marmara, Kirikasama environment, the Burungana, and all this. So it created that environment of low flow and inconsistent movement of water along the river valleys. Now, another complicated thing that is happening there is the rainfall pattern. We have identified, we did some modeling, and we have identified that the rainfall pattern in that area is increasing because in that wing we have a lot of dams, that area all the way down like that, a lot of dams, and big dams are in that hydrological area. So evaporation is constant every day, whether dry season or rain season. So we have a substantial increase in the humidity of the environment there. So when the trade wind that brings rain comes from the southwest, it checks it immediately, early, and it drops heavy rain because the environment is here. And this environment is not, sufficient to convey this water, so it starts spreading all up now. But let me tell you, Jigawa is very proactive.
Yes.
If you go there, they do a lot, and I'm so impressed with what they are doing. They know this problem and they're attacking it. In our committee, they were coming from Jigawa to attend our meeting.
So what's wrong with the other states?
So, well, I'm not here to talk for people. I'm here for talk to those who participated.
Prof, Nema will talk about the other states from a different perspective. But we'll come back to you, Prof. Al Hassan, no, I'm raising this advisedly because we know what happened last year. As soon as news of the flooding broke, the first cries we heard was Nema, come. And we didn't hear from SEMA, which is the State Emergency Management Agency. Supplies. I recall we had almost an interrogation here of saying, look, what kind of supplies have you sent? Water purifiers, medicines, and so on and so forth. What lessons, or what, okay, first of all, what collaboration did you get from the states as at the time the flooding was having its impact, and what lessons did you leave for them to take up from? Because we're still here, because we had one of your colleagues, one of your directors with us about 3 weeks ago, saying that ahead of this year, we don't know what some of these states are doing, that they're not even up to scratch. So what happened last year to guide us as to what to expect this year and then what to do this year?
Well, thank you very much for this intervention. This relief, rehabilitation, recovery is supposed to have collaboration of both the states, the local government, and even the communities. That is why we have this lingering problem continuously. When you have efforts being driven only at the national level, the recovery process also should simultaneously take place at the national and at the subnational level. But not much is coming from the state in that respect. Now we are supposed to enhance, to revive livelihoods, to even improve on the livelihoods of the people. But all these efforts are only coming from the national government. And we are supposed to have local government emergency management committees apart from the state level, because disasters are local events, and most of the activities happen at the local level. But up to today, only about 5 states have local government emergency management committees. In most of these states, there is nothing at the local government level. And even at the state level, they are not at the same pace. Some are doing better than others, just like what Professor Adonu said. Jigawa are doing better. And curiously, it may surprise you, that is one of the 5 states that have local government emergency management committees. So what we need to do really is to have a full of attention to further sensitize the states to brace up to these challenges that are going to are already with us and are unfolding for the next round of flooding. Not just all hands need to be on deck, like what my brother from the insurance company is from the National Insurance Commission is positing. We need to come together. We all know that the durable recovery option is insurance. It's not in relief, it's not in rehabilitation. But the insurance industry is massively underdeveloped and thoroughly underutilized. So we need to bring all hands on deck to sensitize the states in particular to do more in bringing the communities to fore, to insure their own farms. If you look at some of the markets even, it's very easy to understand this. Our markets, some of them are insured, but the wares of the traders are not insured. This is a simple analogy. You can and like the central market in Kaduna, whenever there is fire outbreak, the market bounce back, but the traders bounce out because the market collects its own dues from the insurance company and put back the market, but the wares are gone. As simple as this, you made the traders to understand this, but they are still not yet forthcoming. So what the import here really is for all hands to come on deck. This is beyond what NEMA can do. We've talked to the states repeatedly. We've talked to the farmers repeatedly. We've talked to the traders repeatedly. This is where DRR comes in. DRR is supposed to be an all-front attack on the problem. Right, if you don't listen to this, to A, maybe you listen to B. If the states doesn't listen to us, maybe they will listen to you.
Just hold on. I know you have more to say. We have more questions for you when we come back. We just have to pay some, go to the market and pay some debts, take some commercials, and when we come back, we'll look at how even the insurance payment to the farmers has also helped to relieve the burden of what you do. Let's go for a short break now. We'll be right back.
Nigeria means unity.
Nigeria means freedom to me.
Nigeria means greatness to me.
Nigeria is indivisible. There is nothing you can do. We all have to savage it together and learn to love each other. We are indivisible.
As a mother and a leader, I will always preach for peace and unity in this country, because that is the only thing that will give us progress.
Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand, and it is the woman that does that.
Your skill is key to your professional growth in the competitive broadcast media industry. Take advantage of the following programs specially packaged by NTA Television College Jos to upgrade your skill. Drama Production Workshop. Date 3rd July to 21st July 2023. 3 weeks. Intermediate Online News Reporting Skills. Date 24th July to 11th August 2023. 3 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 120,000 Naira, while the fee for the 3-week course is 150,000 Naira only. Accommodation inclusive. All courses will hold at NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For further inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be. Registrar Announcer.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
We shall defend the nation from terror and all form of criminality that threaten the peace and stability of our country. Security shall be top priority of our administration, because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail amid insecurity and violence.
All right, welcome back, and the program is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at recovering from 2022 flood disaster, and we have quite a very intelligent guest here in the studio. But just before we went on break, I was the DG Relief NEMA was speaking, and I said when we come back, if you look at the statistics, given from the disaster last year, 662 persons lost their lives. Floods ravaged more than 3,172, suffering injuries, and 2.4 million. I'm sure it's more than that, because the statistics I saw, the data I saw is more than that. Individuals were displaced. Displaced.
But affected, yes, over 4 million.
Over 4 million displaced. And I'm wondering, is NEMA relieved from the recovery of, process now? Are you relieved? Are you done?
No, it's ongoing.
Yes.
Recovery process is not like the immediate relief intervention. It takes a longer span of time. Some are immediate, some are short term, some are long term. So we are not done with it. It's ongoing. We are supporting the livelihoods of farmers. We are generating income, employment opportunities in terms of sewing machines, grinding machines, clippers, to regenerate the income, the livelihood of the people. You attack vulnerability not just from the point of consumption. Yeah. You can attack it from the point of production and from the point of exchange. Yeah. And that is the way you can touch in livelihoods. And recovery is not about giving people food to eat, just mending their houses to go back. It's also about
putting them back,
putting their livelihood back, and improving their economic conditions also.
In doing this,
yes,
Al Hassan, do you, I don't want to say objective criteria, whether you utilize objective criteria, how do you nominate persons who are due for reinstatement of their livelihoods? Do you get collaboration from the state government? Is that when state governments are more active?
That is when you see them becoming very active, because they know something is coming. No assessment is done without the state. The post-disaster need assessment. In fact, you need to know what is going on. The local governments are with us, the state are with us, to enumerate those who should benefit from this intervention. And they support us where our warehouses are inadequate. They even provide warehouse to allow us utilize their warehouse, utilize their personnel too. I think the problem is where their resources are needed. That is why you begin to have problem. But they know
resources like what? In what?
Just as NEMA is providing livelihood support, is providing building materials, the state is also supposed to be doing that also. But you not see the
counterpart.
Yeah, exactly.
Counterpart contribution.
And what is coming from the national government cannot be sufficient enough. So you need to have the contribution of the local government, the state government, and even the communities themselves. They contribute in that respect. So why everybody fold his arms and wait for the national government to come in? It really won't work that way.
Okay. Al-Hassan, thank you very much. I want to come back to Engineer Margaret Oguntala. I know that some of the recommendations the NSC made, that's the Society of Engineers, relate to the national government, issues around dams, for instance, utilization of river basins. But the NSC has chapters or branches at the state levels. And it is not necessarily the case that the flood disaster of 2022 impacted solely federal or national infrastructure. Are your branch members also interfacing with the subnational entities and try to get them to come to terms with the urgency of reinstating damaged infrastructure in the course of last year's flood? And if they are, what kind of response is the national body receiving from them?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, yes, the branches, we have branches in all the states, and in some states we even have more than one branch. And I'll tell you that the response of the branches have been good. For instance, the flood in Bayelsa, the branch in Bayelsa took up, immediately engaged the government, on areas, on what to do to mitigate the flood and also to respond to the flooding, and escalated that to national. And that was what we used. And it also, in assessing the flood, really, and the flooding issues, we used our branches at various levels, and we ensure at all times that the branches also interface with the government, and in the states. Each of our branches has very good relationship with the state government, and of course they report back to the national, and in the national on its own also involves the branches. And we also have divisions which is across disciplines of engineering. For instance, I'm a chemical engineer, so I belong to the Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers, which is a division of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. So we have the structure, we have the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, we have highway engineers, and we bring all of these people together to work and to ensure that we are able to give the kind of response that we should give as the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Well, so we deploy experts in each area that is required.
Level, because when disaster strikes, you have an emergency on your hands. Do Nigerian engineers get drafted in for emergency repairs rather than the typical process of contracting and going to look when disasters? I don't know whether you get the point. Do you get drafted in whatever it was happening? So let's get this thing sorted out. We can work out the numbers later in terms of recompense. Are you so consulted?
Not all the time. For instance, for Prof's committee, for instance, we were contacted and we did nominate members. And sometimes when we have issues like building collapse, some of the governments really draft us, for some of these things, and we make sure that we respond. But generally speaking, we are not.
Be that as it may, an excuse. I would have thought that as a body, that the NSC, the engineers, the body of engineers, would also be part, you know, of the recovery process, even without being drafted into the committee or whatever. I mean, would you fold your arms and watch, for instance, you know, Lokogoma, you know, submerged in floods? Would you say, okay, because we're not drafted in any committee? I thought the body should act as a body and equally, you know, begin some recovery process.
We do that. We do that really all the time, and that is the major reason why we have our branches on their toes all the time, because most of these things are done at state levels, you know, and sometimes even local government, and we quickly rise to the occasion when there are issues and we need to maybe render some palliative response or help or assistance. We do that all the time, but sometimes at some levels we need to be drafted, maybe for consultation, you know, on the way forward on how to mitigate or how to prevent flood and a lot of other disasters. So as for our response, we do that without prompting.
Okay, let me ask this, because I mean, Professor Adan disaster.
Yeah, what we advise every property owner to do after this kind of disaster is to do an integrity test, you know, of his property. You know, and unless you do, it is when you do that you even know the extent of damage and the extent of the repair that you have to do. So the first thing to do is to have do an integrity test of the property. That's the basic advice that we give to property owners.
Why is it that most property owners shy away from integrity tests? What are the encumbrances?
Well, none. I think maybe financial. I mean, I can't think of any other encumbrance. So, because they also don't know the value, because they don't understand the fact that just painting might not help. That would just painting is it's decorative as well as constructive. However, if you don't know the basis of your problem, you don't just go into it. So when we advise some property owners, they think the cost is too high and they just do the surface dressing and wait for the next disaster.
Okay, basic thing you have to also notice, because you see some people, they will tell you this. They say, okay, after the flood, we just saw one crack in the wall like this. So they say, we call bricklayer. So the bricklayer will come, just mix water, then plaster.
Surface dressing.
Yeah. So advise our viewers on that kind of approach.
Yes, it's still the same. So when you have a crack, the crack must come from somewhere. There's one we call the spider web. It could come from the roof. It could come from a structural failure. There are a lot of reasons why you would have that kind of crack. So what you need to do is to have a comprehensive test. Invite a structural engineer, and in any case, you should have had a structural engineer on that project anyway, ab initio. So invite him. If you did not, then invite one. That's why we have experts in all the areas, and the structural engineer will be able to do a comprehensive inspection and advise on what to do.
Clear. I think that it will be important also that when disaster strikes like this, there could be, if not there should be, a revision of the usual fees chargeable by professionals in carrying out integrity tests.
You know,
because if that is a disincentive, you don't, when you just call it, you say,
exactly. I was expecting
the charges aren't that high, but you see, really, it's just a mindset with a lot of us in Nigeria, at least that I know, because the average Nigerian would still rather call a bricklayer to build his house than invite an engineer. We just have this mindset that professionals are expensive. Well, we aren't that expensive. We are just more knowledgeable and we have the expertise. And usually it doesn't cost that much. And we are trying to inform people really and educate them and let them know that we are not too expensive. The charges
too expensive.
We are not too expensive.
But yes. Expensive regardless.
No, but knowledge does not come at a cheap cost.
I agree with you.
But we aren't too expensive really. But people just need to know that in the long run, they save a lot more by involving professionals in what they do, particularly in structures. So, but I mean, you can imagine the amount of loss that one could have when a building collapses, for instance. You know, loss of the entire property and lives sometimes. So how much can you compare to how much a structural engineer would charge? So it's something that people need to think about, and it brings me back to the issue of insurance as well. You know, it's people knowing the value of what they really are going into, and then when you know the value and you understand the entire cost implication, then you would be able to appreciate it more and go for it.
What is the premium? I know that it will vary. I mean, the premium you pay for the value of a certain car will not be the same you pay for another. But on the average, because earlier you were saying that farmers are more interested in proceeds from their work rather than outgoings in terms of further expenses or expenditure. What is the average premium payable by an insured farmer?
Okay. You know, the agricultural insurance scheme that we run, the premium is subsidized. So for a crop farmer, for example, the premium is 4% of the cost of production for that cycle, for the production cycle. But this premium is subsidized 50% by the federal government and the state government where that project is located. So the farmer ends up paying 2%. Okay, for example, if the cost of production is maybe 100,000, the premium is supposed to be 4,000, 4%, but the farmer pays just 2,000. Because it is subsidized.
Yeah, I know that's by way of example. And yes. Farmers are still reluctant.
Yes.
To spend that money.
Yes, and farmers are still reluctant to spend. Farmers are still reluctant to spend that money unless unless they are getting credit from the bank, and the credit is bundled with insurance. Because really, the law that established the Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Scheme says that if you are taking any facility from the bank, the farm must be insured.
Okay, just before we conclude this, we just in the few minutes that we have, I'm just wondering again, from a layman's perspective, is what is being paid out via insurance, is it enough to assuage, the loss for the farmers, or would you advocate that the premium be upped?
You see, what is being paid out, in claims calculation, when I spoke earlier, I said it, that payment is made based on at the point of loss.
Yes, I know.
Yes. So what the farmer has put it. So what the farmer puts in.
I understand that. I'm looking at now.
Yes.
From your perspective, from your calculations of the loss, of the damages resulting from the disaster.
Yes.
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 Is that sufficient? Will that be sufficient?
To go back to farm. So the compensation is paid the money paid to the farmer is enough to take the farmer back to the farm. If the loss occurred at the final stage, say maybe about to harvest, when the farmer is about to harvest, definitely you're going to pay the farmer almost everything. Maybe just less 10% policy excess, and in which case the farmer definitely will be able to go back to the farm. If the loss occurred, say maybe after germination, for example, in which case the cost of clearing, the cost of planting and all that, it is calculated, the farmer will be paid enough for the farmer to go back.
Okay.
To
very quickly, Professor Adano, very quickly. We didn't get into this, but it's one of the issues that have been identified over the years, and you've also talked about this. Did your committee make recommendations with better management of our dams, desitting them so that they can impound more water and then avoid more runoff that will cause disaster downstream?
Yeah, we made recommendations, almost everything that is required of water management, everything. But we must be very careful when we're desilting certain environments.
We won't have enough time. We just
so
like a last statement from What is your message right now? What is your message to Nigerians?
Well, the message is for all hands to be on the deck. The local government, the state government, and the federal government. We are witnessing. We are on the recovery stage up to now, and very soon the next round of flooding will start. Right. No single entity can do it alone.
Al-Hassan Nuhu, Director, Relief and Rehabilitation, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. Thank you very much. And Dr. Victor Fowe, Head Special Projects, Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation, Abuja. We'd also appreciate you.
Thank you.
Engineer Margaret Oguntala, Deputy President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSC. Thank you, Madam, for coming. And Professor Emmanuel Adanu, Director General, National Water Resources Institute, and member Presidential Committee on Flood. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's join our foreign desk for some stories on the foreign scene.
At least 17 people, including 3 children, died in a slum